you know what? Let's be honest. Many of you have kids. Are they as good and sweet and innocent and humble as, as we imagine them to be? Most of the time, aren't they demanding, short-tempered, sulky, stubborn, thankless, and selfish? I'll tell you, it's interesting. I have only been a father for 4 months. So let me tell you all my experience and expertise. Last week, it was one of our feeding times, which changing feeding times are all the time. One of the changing times, we have a changing table, a little changing station. And it accommodates one baby at a time. So Ryan was the lucky guy, probably because he was crying first. So Kim was changing Ryan and got a bib on him and gave him to me. And as soon as I'm giving a child, I put a bottle in his mouth. And then we start with the second child. And Kim went and got Allie. And Allie was doing fine. She was happy. She was content. Life was good. Until, if this was a changing table, Kim picked her up, put her on her shoulder so she's facing that way. And I'm sitting over here with Ryan, feeding him the bottle. And all of a sudden, she got this look on her face like, oh, no, he's not. Where is my bottle? And the little lip came out, and you can see that air. All of a sudden, she sucked in that air. And you're like, oh, here it goes. And she blew. And she just lost it. And Kim and I looked at each other like, are you kidding me? And even yesterday, we're feeding Ryan. And I'll tell you, they are trained. As soon as a bib goes on, and if you don't have a bottle in their mouth within 30 seconds of that bib coming on, they both lose it. Now, kids aren't as ideal as we make them out to be. And in this passage, when Jesus says to be like a child, he is not talking about any virtues or any characteristics that these little children possess in and of themselves. No. What he is saying when he says, be like a child, is that when the little children came to Jesus, they came as they are. They came as helpless, small, powerless, weak, insignificant, with no legal, religious, or social weight, no influence, and completely dependent on others. And Jesus said, that is what is necessary to be on my team. That was what the rich young ruler was lacking. And I think that doesn't go for just individuals. I think that goes for churches as well. We can have all sorts of great characteristics like the rich young ruler, but Jesus says, you want to be on my team? You need to be helpless and small and powerless and completely dependent on me. This is why Jesus told him to sell everything that he had, so he'd have to be completely dependent on him. And obviously, poverty would dramatize just how helpless this man was in achieving eternal life on his own. And I assume most of you caught the question he asked. He asked Jesus, what must I do to be saved? What must I do? It's as Jesus looked at him and said, no, no, no. It's about what I'm going to do for you. Not what you can do, what I'm going to do. You see, this man's wealth and morality gave him a false sense of security. His wealth and his morality led him to think, you know what? Life's going pretty well. I feel like I'm being blessed by God. I'm a good guy. I pay my taxes, and I'm being blessed with all this wealth. I must be pretty close to the kingdom. But it gave him a false sense of security. And hopefully you caught that. Because as Americans living in the suburbs of Boston, attending an evangelical church, Jesus is talking to us. And we better pay attention because this is the only person who says no to Jesus when Jesus calls him to follow him. Only person that turns down Jesus' call to follow him. This guy. And he looks a lot like us. Jesus is telling us that wealth is not necessarily a sign of God's blessing, and in fact, it could lead us easily away from complete dependence on God, thus cutting us from his team. And the same thing could be said about our morality, being a good person. That also can give us a false sense of security, an illusion that we made the team. I like the way one scholar put it. He said, anything, wealth, blessings, morality, reputation, honor, work ethic, anything that causes us to forget our poverty and childlikeness before God and that prevents us from following Jesus Christ is a camel before the eye of a needle. The rich young ruler was unwilling to give up his wealth and security, even though he sensed he didn't quite have eternal life. That's why he came up to Jesus and asked him about it. The rich young ruler was unwilling to give up his wealth and security, even though Jesus said, this is it. This is all that stands between you and eternal life. This is it right here. He couldn't do it. And I don't think we should be quick to judge him. I mean, what would you do if you were in his shoes? I mean, if today Jesus came up to you and said, I'll give you eternal life, all you got to do is get rid of everything you have. All you got to do is give it all up and follow me. I'm not sure what I would say. That's a tough question. It's difficult. And I don't think much has changed in 2,000 years. Riches still have such power and influence, such security and comfort. It's why a sixth of what Jesus talks about is on money and wealth. If you look through the scriptures, a sixth of what he preaches on is on money and wealth. How are we able to avoid this? How could we ever be able to even just renounce our wealth, let alone actually give it all away? Give it up. Give it all away. The rich young ruler couldn't see any way of doing this, and I bet for most of you, you'd be hard-pressed to figure out how you would do it too. But for us, the Bible does give us one answer, and just one answer only, about how we would be able to give up all that we have. And that answer is the only way we are able to give up all that we have, or even just renounce it, is if we found something of such greater value, of such greater worth, of such greater riches, that we know we would be fools not to give up everything we had to give it. And that's the central message of Jesus' two smallest, shortest little parables. Matthew 13. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy, went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away, sold everything he had, and bought it. Listen, Jesus designed us. Jesus created us. He knows how he works. He knows that neither one of these individuals in these stories would have given and sold all that they had unless they were going to get something even greater in return. You see, Jesus didn't tell the rich young ruler to sell everything he had because he wants him to be poor. No, Jesus wants him to sell everything he has because he wants him to be much, much, much richer. And this man couldn't see the riches that were before him. He didn't realize the great value that stood before him. That's why Jesus questioned him and stopped him when the rich young ruler addressed him as good teacher. Remember, he said, good teacher. And Jesus said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why do you call me good? There's only one who's good, and that's God alone. See, Jesus recognized that this guy did not realize how good Jesus was. He didn't realize the great goodness Jesus had toward him. He didn't know how much he was loved. In fact, in Mark's gospel, the rich young ruler is the only person of whom it can be said, Jesus loved him. The only one.